Hi guys, it's Aoife from Words of Clover and I'm here to do the mid-year book freakout tag. So this is a great tag that goes around this time every year. I'm a little bit late to it, but I wanted to still get involved, so I decided might as well just do it now. Straight on into the questions, because I know I'll probably ramble about all of these books quite a lot. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year. For me, I think the best book I've read so far, or at least one of them, is The Rachel Instant by Caroline O'Donoghue. This is a book set in kind of the early 2000s-ish in Cork in Ireland, and we are following a university student called Rachel as she starts this friendship with this guy called James, and he is her very best friend, and the two of them are kind of like this little team, and it's just basically about her friendship with him, kind of her debauchery as her kind of late uni years. And then we're also kind of seeing all of this through flashbacks from Rachel, who's now in her 30s, is pregnant and married and living in London, looking back at some things that happened in her life around then, things that really changed the course of her life, that were surrounding herself, her best friend James, and this university professor, and how kind of things that they all did together, and in particular decisions that she made, ended up changing the course of her life. And I just found this really engaging, really interesting. The atmosphere, the setting were really, really good. The voice of Rachel I thought was so strong, and she's not necessarily like a completely likable character at times. She's very, very messy, doesn't really know what she's doing, but very, apt for the time period she's living in, the age she is, that kind of like doesn't have a clue what to do next moment that you have when you're kind of finishing up university and you don't really know what the hell to do next. You're suddenly thrust into this adult world and you don't really know how to handle it so much. And I just really loved reading about it, and I just really loved this book. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to eventually rereading it and reading more of Caroline O'Donoghue. So she has a little bit of a backlist that I need to read now, because I haven't actually read any of her stuff before, but I really enjoyed this and really, really recommend it. Question number 2 is the best sequel you've read this year. So I actually have 2 for this. The first one I've read pretty recently at the start of June, and that was The Shadow Cabinet by Juno Dawson. This is the second book in Her Majesty's Royal Coven series, the first of which I read last year and absolutely loved. And this is an urban fantasy adult series that is focusing on a group of female friends who are all witches, and they all live in this world where witches basically coincide alongside humans. They have their own government, which is the Her Majesty's Royal Coven. And we are seeing how when they were younger, when they were kind of in their late teens, early 20s, these girls were all involved in this like really big war against this warlock who tried to basically take over the world and killed a lot of people and was very, very bad. And now they are in their 30s, and this guy is kind of started, or like kind of followers of his have started to come back. There are some things that are happening. There's been like these threats and premonitions made, and the girls have to work together again to figure out what to do next, and to basically try and save people, save their loved ones. But also there's a lot of kind of like things going on within their friend group as well, because they're obviously older, they have families now, they have changed a lot in the years since they were, young, like college students together. And yeah, they're kind of battling their own changing friendship and their own changing viewpoints on the world, as well as trying to save the world at the same time. So the first book ended off on like this big cliffhanger. There was like some real like oh shit moments with that one, and I was really, really looking forward to what the second one would deliver, and it definitely delivered for me. I just loved being in all of these characters' heads again. I loved kind of really getting to know a character that we didn't get so much of in the first one, and getting to know her and her motives and her thought processes were really, really interesting, just really fun, and quite like kind of skirting along the morally grey sidelines of things, which I really enjoyed. And then again, this one again ended in a moment that I was like, I just need the third one right now. So yeah, I can't wait to read the third one. And I do know there's actually some sort of prequel book coming out as well, which is following Anne Boleyn, who was supposed to be the original kind of witch that all of these witches follow. So she is the Her Majesty in Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So that should be really, really fun as well. Yeah, I just really loved this one, and it was just brilliant for me. And then the other sequel I wanted to mention, because it was definitely kind of a surprise for me that I love this one so much, was Romancing Mr Bridgeton by Julia Quinn, which is the 4th book in the Bridgeton series. So this one follows Colin and Penelope. That's their story, and this one is just the most perfect friends to lovers, cutie. I just really love this one. There was just so many like tender moments. There was this really lovely friends to lovers arc, which isn't, friends to lovers isn't always my favorite. I would definitely veer towards enemies to lovers than friends to lovers, but this one was a friends to lovers that I just really enjoyed, and I really appreciated every moment in it, so I really loved it. And then there's also kind of an element, obviously, if people know Penelope and know kind of what she does, there's kind of an element of writing and being a writer in this book, which I also really enjoyed. I just love that little arc of the two of them finding a love of writing and talking about that, and that kind of being something that bonded them together as well. I just thought that was really sweet. So yeah, this is one that I just really loved. And also on all of that as well, Penelope is a plus size character, and I just liked seeing that represented too. So yeah, really enjoyed that one as well. Number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet, but I want to. So I have a couple here. One I do have on NetGalley, another one I don't have. So the one I have on NetGalley that I still haven't gotten to is Small Worlds by Caleb Azuma Nelson. I read his first book a couple of years ago, and I just absolutely loved it. He is such a wonderful style of writing, kind of almost poetic and lyrical in a way, and really looks at kind of the black male experience in London, which was his first book, and I think the second one is similar. And I just really appreciated seeing this world through his characters and through the author's point of view in terms of what it's like to be a black male in the United Kingdom. And I thought it was just really well done. I just thought the writing was excellent and really just like a writer to watch. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading the second one. I've heard really good things from people both on BookTube and people in my real life who've read this and really enjoyed it. And the second book I want to read is just one I've heard a lot about, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is, as far as I know, kind of a fantasy series, and romance fantasy, I think. I don't know whether it's fantasy or romance fantasy, but it's to do with dragons and dragon riders, and I am an Aragon girly. We'll get to that on we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I am a real Aragon girly. I love anything to do with dragons, anything to do with dragon riders, I will eat up. So when I heard about this, I was like, okay, this is definitely one I want to read at some point. And I've just heard so many people really love it. I've seen some people who hate it, but it definitely feels like it's something you read just to be entertained, just for a good story, not necessarily something to be like critiquing. And I'm all for that. I like books to entertain me. I have enough things to be doing, like in my own work life and in my personal life. I don't need to be reading books and trying to critique every single one. I just want to read a book for fun, and this was definitely what this is going to be at some point, if I ever get to read it. Number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year, and this is where we come back to Aragon, because there is, I think it'll be the fifth book maybe in the Aragon series, and it's called Murta by Christopher Paolini, and this is following on from the original Aragon series, and we are following a character called Murta who was very closely connected to the main characters in the first book, and he was a character in the first book, this kind of like morally grey, conflicted character that was in the first book, kind of a very tortured character in the first series, or the original series, and a really interesting character. And I think this is following him, and I think this is going to be so good. I'm really looking forward to reading this, and I do have, I think maybe starting in September, I have noted down to start rereading the Aragon series, which I haven't read in years, so which will be a really fun project for me as well, just rereading those. So I'm really looking forward to rereading the original series and then getting on to Murta, because I am just so excited for this book, guys. I really can't wait. Question number 5 is the biggest disappointment. So I have 2. One of them I actually really recently read, and that was The Three of Us. This was on like kind of my books I'm looking forward to reading video that I shared at the start of the year. And this is a book that takes place all in one day, so it's a very quick read. It's actually only 200 pages, which I didn't realise at the time. It's quite a short book, and it's in 3 sections. So we are following the wife, the husband, and then the wife's best friend. I don't know if we actually get names for the wife and husband, but the wife's best friend is named Temmie, and we are figuring out how they all have, basically the husband and the best friend have a very strained relationship, and they don't really like each other at all, and the wife is kind of caught between them, and we are seeing the dynamics between all of these relationships and how it kind of blows up all in one night and what is going on. So I was really looking forward to that, because I thought like the concept of that was really interesting, but I actually found this a very difficult book to read, which I'll probably talk more about when I do my July wrap up. But maybe it's because it's so funny, because in my recent haul I talked about how I actually like reading books that show toxic friendships and friendships that aren't just like these perfect envisions of what female friendship and best friends should be. And I think that a lot of people out there, particularly women, have experience of toxic relationships and friendship breakups and things like that. And I had said that I liked seeing that in books because I have personal experience of things like that. But for some reason with this book, it just hit me in a way that I found it really hard to read, and it was a lot of Temmie's actions and the controlling way she was with her friend, and the way she was so dismissive of her friend's relationships, like romantically, and her marriage, and how she was actively trying to ruin their marriage. I found very hard to read, and I think some of it just hit a little bit too close to home or something with experiences I've had in the past as a teenager, or like as a experiences that I've had in the past as a teenager and as a young person in my 20s. There were just some things there that just I just was really uncomfortable reading it. And even in all of that as well, I think the book just, I don't know, I just don't think it was good as I wanted it to be. I felt very dissatisfied with the ending, and yeah, it just wasn't resolved in a way that I wanted it to be resolved. And interestingly, in that book, the person who I actually liked the most was the husband, who, going into that, you would probably think, oh, the husband's probably like not a nice guy or something, but he was actually the biggest victim in this situation, and I felt really, really sorry for him. So yeah, it was just in certain, like, there was a lot of different levels as to why I just really didn't like it. And yeah, and then the other one for me was Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. So I did a Kindle Unlimited project recently where I read kind of taboo romances, and this one is a very dark taboo romance. We're following two characters who don't really like each other. They're kidnapped by this like crazed serial killer, and basically he forces them to be intimate with each other as a way of torturing them. And I'd heard a lot of things about this from like a bunch of different kind of romance booktubers, and people said they really, really liked it. So I was like, okay, I'm interested to see how this is explored. And I just thought the writing just really wasn't good in it at all. And the story and the character arcs and character decisions, I just didn't think were good at all. So yeah, I really didn't enjoy that one. His biggest surprise, and for me it's Blood, Sweat and Chrome by Carl Buchanan, which is a book all about the fourth Mad Max movie, which is Mad Max Fury Road. If you told me one of my favourite books of this year would be a book about Mad Max, I would be like, what are you talking about? That, like, that's mad. But I enjoyed every single bit of this book. I love having little tidbits of information and knowledge about Mad Max Fury Road that I can now share with people if they want to hear it, or if they don't, I tell them anyway. And yeah, I just love this one. This is all about the 20-year process that basically was the creation, the production and the release of Fury Road. And we get interviews from people from every different part of the project, from the actors like Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy, the director, who seems like such a nice guy, really interesting background as well, and who created the first three Mad Maxes as well, and then just other people in the film industry, stuntmen, everything, and just what an unusual film it was. And there were so many different processes in it that are very unusual for Hollywood, and how basically, because of the type of stunts that were done in it, how it's an absolute miracle that no one died in the making of Fury Road because of all the stunts. Yeah, so I just absolutely love this. I just thought it was such a good book, so gripping, and yeah, I loved every second of it, and I would happily reread it at another point in time. So yeah, this was a real surprise for me, but one I absolutely loved, and one I definitely contribute to Perpetual Pages, who recommended it, and on their recommendation and their review, I was like, I have to read this, and I reserved it for my library like straight away, and now it's one of my favorite books of the year, and possibly one of my favorite books of all time. Question number 7 is favourite new author, debut or new to you. So my favourite new debut author is probably Alice Ryan, who wrote There's Been a Little Incident, which I read recently. I talked about in my June wrap up. I read this in audiobook, and I just thought the voice in this was just really, really fun, really kind of comedic, very Irish. Gave me kind of like the Snapper vibes, which I talked about, which I really love, which is like a classic Irish movie. And if you like kind of like the writing and the family dynamics and the fun that's in that, I think There's Been a Little Incident is a little bit similar. So yeah, I really like that. I'm looking forward to seeing what else Alice Ryan comes out with, because yeah, I think it'll be really, really good. And then another new to me author, which who I've been absolutely loving, because I'm currently almost finished her third book, and that is Fonda Lee with Jade, who wrote Jade Series, which is the Greenbone Saga, which is an amazing urban fantasy series. And yeah, I've been absolutely loving this one. So I read the first book, which is Jade City, in January, and at the moment I'm reading the third book, which is Jade Legacy, and I have this much left of it. So I have this much left of it, and I'm afraid. I'm very, very afraid. So yeah, I think she's just an amazing writer. I know she brought out some sort of novella this year, I think, which I'll definitely be reading, but I'll be reading anything else she brings out, especially if it's fantasy or high fantasy, because she is able to create characters and world building in a way that I have never seen before, or at least I haven't read in a long time something as skilled and as good as the way she does it. So yeah, definitely a new favourite author. Number 8 is newest fictional crush. I don't think I really get fictional crushes as much as I used to, but definitely I think Hilo in Jade City, who is like the second brother or the younger brother in the Call family, and he's like a really big character all the way through. So we follow him. He's like in his 20s in this one, and now in this one he's like almost probably in his like middle 40s now, where I am at this point. Like, you follow him for pretty much like his almost his entire life, and he's definitely someone who basically will kill to keep his family safe. He's very, very fierce, very passionate, and there's definitely something very sexy about him because he is so dangerous as well. So I do really, really love him. And then I have accepted that I definitely do fancy Josh Derwent in the Maeve Kerrigan series, which is by Jane Casey. So he is like basically like an asshole. He's misogynistic, he's very inappropriate at times, but he also is one of these, he's kind of like Hilo in ways of, if you're in his inner circle, he will do anything to protect you, to keep you safe. He will always be on by your side. He'll always have your back in dangerous situations. And even though like there's so many times where like you kind of just want to hit him, you also kind of want to kiss him. Like, he's this kind of character, and he has this really amazing kind of chemistry with his partner Maeve Kerrigan, who's the main character in the series, and they have this kind of this chemistry between them where you're kind of, they hate each other, but they also probably like kind of want to do things with each other. And yeah, it's a real kind of interesting dynamic to read about, which I really enjoy. Number 9 is newest favourite character. So this one I went with Endurance Jury Proudfoot from That Bone Setter Woman. So this is historical fiction set around the Georgian period in England, and we are following a character called Jury who wants to be a bone setter, which is something her father did, and because she's a woman, people are telling her that she can't do that. So she ends up, because of something to do with her sister, the two of them end up moving to London for a time to stay with her aunt. And while there, the aunt realises that Jury has this talent with bone setting, and it could help make her a little bit of money and kind of get her name out there. So she helps her set up her bone setting business, and we just see her kind of go about and do that. And she's just, her voice is just this lovely person, very kind, very loving, just wants to do best by other people, but also because of her nature, she's also quite naive and almost too trusting at times, and you see her get taken advantage of by people who want things out of her, like money and things like that, and that's kind of hard to read sometimes when you can see very plainly that someone isn't a good person, but she kind of takes them at face value and thinks that they're being good and they're not lying to her. And yeah, she was just a lovely character to follow, and I just really enjoyed her. So yeah, that's a really good historical fiction as well that I would recommend to people. Question number 10 is a book that made me cry. I'm going for Love from the Pink Palace with this one, and this is a non-fiction book that's all about kind of the AIDS epidemic in London, but particularly how it affected the West End environment, because we are following a character who was an actress in the West End, and obviously all her best friends, all the people she was closest to in life, a lot of them were gay men, and she basically had to watch so many of her friends die slowly from AIDS, and then also the stigma that surrounded the AIDS epidemic as well, and how her friends were treated by other members of the public when they were sick and when they needed help. And she kind of worked her entire life to help victims of AIDS, and also just to get kind of to destigmatize the illness as well. But just her talking about some of her friends and what wonderful people they were, and just the fun that she had with them, and then like kind of talking about their illness, and then maybe the end of their life. Some parts of it were really hard to read, and definitely kind of brought tears to my eyes. This was kind of slightly in her story was slightly an inspiration for It's a Sin TV show, which is also brilliant and also will make you like cry like a baby. So yeah, it was just very inspiring to read, and I definitely recommend people to read it. But yeah, it might make you cry. It is quite emotional. A book that made me happy recently was definitely A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. This is a Regency romance, which is a very slow burn, enemies to lovers romance. And just reading this, I just had a really good time. I loved the characters, I loved the plot, I loved the enemies to lovers format of it. And then I just loved the slow burn because it just really made me aching for something to happen between them. So when it did, it was just really, really satisfactory. So yeah, I just had a really, really good time reading this. This question now is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? I have two here. One of them is He Who Drowned the World by Shelley Parker Chan. This is the second book in the She Who Became the Sun trilogy, I think it might be, which is kind of a historical fantasy set in Imperial China, which I'm really looking forward to continuing on with, which I'm hoping to do quite soon. And then as soon as the weather gets a little bit more like autumny, I want to curl up one day with just a nice drink and a blanket and finally read Legends and Lattes, which I've heard so many great things about, and I'm really looking forward to reading. Then question number 4 is content creators that you've been loving lately. So I have a few I want to shout out. One of them is definitely Charlotte Malloy. I actually followed her on the back of, I think it was Lauren and the Books had talked about Charlotte in her maybe quarter year crisis tag, I'm not sure. But she originally recommended Charlotte and I subscribed to her on the back of that, and I've just loved every single video that Charlotte has like brought out. She is really into like literary fiction, and just her videos and the book she's talking about are just like so well thought out, so eloquent. She's so smart. Her reviews are just amazing, and she also is based in Bali, so her backgrounds of her videos are always kind of like tropical and sunny and nice. And seeing as we're basically having a very, very rainy summer in Ireland right now, sometimes seeing the sun in Charlotte's videos is all the sun I get that day. So yeah, so I've been really enjoying that as well. And then another book creator that I've been really enjoying actually is Ben, who from Ben Reads Good. And again, he kind of reads a little bit more kind of literary. We'll read some of the kind of the short list or long list of some of the book prizes, like the Women's Prize for Fiction and the Booker Prize and stuff like that. But again, just really well thought out videos, really eloquent, really kind of insightful reviews I just really enjoy reading, and also just a really nice person to watch on camera. I think just really nice presence on camera as well. So yeah, I've just really enjoyed his videos too. And then if I wanted to talk about someone who is like probably a little bit more well known, but someone who's new to me, is Literature Science Alliance. And she kind of reads more science fiction and fantasy. Again, her reviews are just really good. I also think she has a real like good selection of kind of different types of videos as well, kind of fun videos to watch, TBR videos, books that she wants to read, books that kind of have come to her attention and stuff like that, looking at new releases, all those kind of videos that I think are really, really good, and I've really enjoyed watching. So I've really enjoyed watching her over the past few months since I've subscribed to her, and yeah, I really recommend her, especially if you like science fiction and fantasy, though she does read a little bit of historic fiction and literary books as well. So that is it for the mid-year book freakout tag. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please let me know what your best book, your worst book, maybe the book you're most anticipating for the end of the year, because I'm sometimes really bad at knowing books that are coming out. So if there is any books that you're really anticipating that you would like to share with me, please let me know. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.